At DSW, we ask the important questions, like, what shoes are you going to wear? Whether you're prepping for wedding season, festival season, or just planning the ultimate vacay, the right shoes can make or break an RSVP. So own the moment. You've got big plans, and we've got just the shoes. At the perfect price, of course. Get ready to get ready with Designer Shoe Warehouse. Head to your DSW store or dsw.com today and let us surprise you.
You're listening to this podcast, so I know you've got a curious mind. Here's a helpful fact you may not know yet. Drivers who switch and save with Progressive save over $900 on average. Pop over to progressive.com, answer some questions, and you'll get a quick quote with discounts that are easy to come by. In fact, 99% of their auto customers earn at least one discount. Visit progressive.com and see if you can enjoy a little cash back. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. National average 12-month savings of $946 by new customers surveyed who saved with Progressive between June 2024 and May 2025. Potential savings will vary.
All right, so we're back with Partners in True Crime. Who killed Molly Miller and Colt Haynes? We're still trying to answer that question. And today we have on someone who we've known for a little while now. We actually bless you. We actually met Dr. Tracy Sargent, but we call her Trace. And we met her when we were doing Up and Vanished. And she came on and did some she's a professional dog handler. What is your professional title?
Yes, so I actually wear many hats, Rob.
I was going to say, because it's hard to encapsulate all the stuff you do. So I don't want to limit it to just one thing.
Well, thank you. Certainly most people know me as a dog handler, but I do more than that. My PhD is in psychology with an emphasis of criminology, victimology, behavioral analysis, and essence profiling. And then being a criminal investigator, law enforcement officer as well, and interviewer. So in essence, whatever tools I have in my tool bag to help with these missing person cases, I'm happy to share everything and anything as far as my knowledge and capabilities, and certainly appreciate you guys reaching out to me and helping with these cases as well.
Yeah. And like I said, we met her on Up and Vanished. We used her for a couple cases, but the one that really kind of sticks out was the Kessie, the Jennifer Kessie case, which was, and anybody know about Drew Kessie and Jennifer Kessie? I mean, and Drew's and their family, just amazing people. And they had a horrible thing happen where their daughter just disappeared. And when we were on Up and Vanished, Trace, we brought her out because we got a tip about where remains could be in this pond. And it was fascinating because Trace brought, she was from Georgia. So she came down with 2 dogs, and we had a pretty good tip on that. And her dog won, but both hit on a particular area. And so we had to call the sheriff's department, and they basically locked down that pond for like 3 days. And unfortunately, they didn't find anything. But, your dogs, you're confirmed that something was in that pond.
Certainly so. And that's the thing I certainly want to clarify with your audience. What these dogs do, most people know them as cadaver dogs, but in essence, they're human remains detection dogs. In summary, they tell us where scent is. In this case, human remains scent. What we don't know and what they can't tell us is where is that human remains scent coming from. That's where the human part of this investigative team and toolbox steps in and says, okay, the dogs didn't show anything over here, so we feel confident we can mark that area off. But in this particular area, they are showing change of behavior, alerts that warrant further investigation. And that applies to all the cases that we work, not only in the Kessie case, but all cases. Yeah. So in Kessie's case, the dogs did exactly that. And I will say, seeing that pond firsthand, it was very, very challenging with a lot of the debris and just vegetation and everything. That was really a big, big challenge for all the responders there. But certainly what we hope at a minimum is to move these cases forward. And I feel like we did in that Kessie case, and certainly in the Molly Miller and Colt Haynes case, and other cases that we've worked. That's the best we can hope for, is that we move these cases forward. Sometimes we find exactly what we're looking for. Sometimes we find nothing, but that still is very helpful.
It's checking it off the list. It's like we always say, check it off the list. And what was really interesting is that, we had no clue that you had, before we had met you, that you'd worked on the Molly Miller and Colt Haynes case with Philip Klein, the PI that Molly's family hired to look into this. And so you were there, boots on the ground, probably pretty early on, probably around 4 weeks after she went missing, I believe. I don't know. Is that about right? You think about when you were brought out there?
Actually, I think it was a few months.
It was a few months.
I recall Philip and other investigators went out there immediately, I think in that very short time frame. And once they did, so to speak, a recon of the area, do some interviews, that's when they recognized, you know what, we need some additional resources, and a cadaver dog would certainly be very helpful in this. And that's when they reached out to me.
What information did Phil give you? I mean, how much did he give you to start you with? Can you remember?
Yes. So there were 3 individuals in a vehicle. One of those individuals, the driver, I recall, was the nephew of the local sheriff at that time. And then Molly Miller and Colt Haynes were also in that vehicle. Philip described that there was a car chase. I don't know why, what instituted or initiated that car chase, but there was a car chase. In essence, the car broke down in this open, rural, isolated ranch, farmland type of area. And from there, those individuals obviously left the vehicle. The driver was found, but Molly and Colt were still missing.
Okay, cool. And so he brought you in a few months afterwards, after he did some investigating and felt that there was probably a need to search those areas where obviously the car was dumped, and there was another area which he showed us and up and vanished, a burn pit, which he thought maybe they had tried to burn the remains there. We don't know if any of that happened, but lo and behold, I mean, after how many years now? What was it?
13 years.
13 years. In February, the BIA, along with the Chickasaw Nation and Texas Search and Rescue Team, 165 people came out there, and they spent, they were planning on spending about 4 or 5 days, almost a full week out there. And in a day and a half, they were able to locate both of their remains, and they weren't too far from where you were searching.
Yes. So when we went out there, again, it's hard to paint a picture for the listeners and viewers, but just imagine this is a vast farmland, ranch land, wide open areas, also many trees in the area. So this isn't something that you could just walk in and conclude in, a few hours or even a few days, which I think is warranted in those number of people, 165 people expecting to be out there for weeks. So you can imagine how large these areas are. With that, we started in an area, actually, they took me to where the car was found. So with these cases, there is a method to the madness. So we start in what we call ground zero. The car was ground zero, and then we work our way out. That makes sense, whether it's topography, human behavior, witness statements, all of that. So that's what we did. So we started at the car, worked our way out, and for hours, the dog did nothing, showed no interest. But then we got to this large dry creek bed that rarely has any water in it. And as we walked into this dry creek bed, nothing. But then we get into this particular area, and the dog has a change of behavior and actually alerts. And at this point in time, a local farmer or rancher tells us, during the time when all this happened, there was a large fire in this area. And we were like, why would there be a fire in the middle of a dry creek bed? And it's just too coincidental. And you know this, guys, there are no coincidences in law enforcement. There's got to be a reason for it. We've got to figure out, why did this happen? And out of all the places for the dog to show anything at all, it was at this one burn pit. And then downstream from there, which were debris collection points, where the ashes and burn pile area had washed down a little bit. And that was the only area he showed any interest. I do want to also state that trying to identify other areas for us to search, I was advised that areas north of us, we could not go. We were not allowed to go with the dog to search there. I don't know all the ins and outs, but it was my impression, for safety reasons and a lot of other reasons, they absolutely would not allow a search dog to go up into that area. And now I understand, ironically, that is in fact where the bodies were found.
And pretty damn close to it.
Yeah. And the reason why, I think it was because the original landowner was not giving permission. Is that the case? Do we know?
I can't remember. I can't remember.
Or they've never asked them. I don't know what the case is, to be honest. I don't know what caused them not to be able to search. I don't want to say the wrong thing.
Okay. Well, basically that area was owned. It's switched hands, I think, a couple times since then. And even when the BEIA was involved, they couldn't get a warrant. There was several warrant tries to get in a lot of those areas, and there was not, the local judges were shutting it down because they said there was no probable cause. And I know, and I've argued this before, I said, there was a felony high-speed pursuit chase where two people go missing and they know where the car was. And so why couldn't you get a warrant for something like that? And never can get an answer for that. And obviously, all the legal people saying, well, it's because of this and that and everything. But they weren't, even the BIA couldn't get warrants. So they had to get permission from each one of the landowners. And that land that you said that you weren't allowed to come on at that time, and that you were warned you can't go up there, was still, the landowner was like, well, he wasn't sure. And then he said yes. And then he limited the amount of time. And then he finally, they were on a ticking clock. They thought they had 4 days. And then they found out they only had like 2 days. So they had to really, you're talking thousands and thousands of acres. And, so it's like they had to redirect, even though they had a lot of manpower out there, 165 plus people. And the medical examiner's office was out there with their people. Everybody was there. They had everything they needed to do it. So they were on a ticking clock. And so they were able to find it like in a day and a half. And I don't know whether or not they had a tip. Who knows? Everyone's saying that it was a grid search, but that's, to me, it's like God had his hand into that grid search, but to be able to kind of come up, because there weren't many, from what I was told, there weren't many much left of the remains. It was like a little tiny, bones. They were able to find clothing. They found, I believe, a phone. They found some jewelry. And all of which matches back to Molly. So, but with that in mind, you've done this so many times, Trace. What is the likelihood of your finding remains after 13 years?
Well, Rob, that's a great question. And there is some probability, and in certain cases, high probability, that we will find remains years later. We've worked cases, for example, archaeologists, that historical projects is what we call them, battlefield sites, Revolutionary War, 300, 250, 300 years ago. And the dogs have actually found remains that old. And I would say, from the dog's perspective, when the archaeologist asked me this, I'm like, we don't train for that, long of remains. But I tell you what, thinking about it from a dog's perspective, scent is scent. And it's more of a threshold for the dog, not to get into the technicality of all of that. But in essence, the dogs don't know that it's 13 years old or 300 years old. Scent is scent to them. And I would say the key to all of these cases, first and foremost, is just hard, dogged work. It truly is. There's no magic to this other than just hard work, long hours, blood, sweat, and tears, all of that. Certainly luck. You know, we always want to lean into luck on our side. But then it goes back to, we've got to get to the right area. It doesn't matter if it was with dogs or drones or helicopters or ground pounders or investigators or even hikers. We have to get into the right area. And most often what we do in these cases, it's very common where it's, like you said earlier, process of elimination, that it's extremely rare. It has happened, but it's extremely rare that we go into a case, go to the search area, and within 5 minutes we find who we're looking for. It's happened, but it's rare. More often than not, it's a process of elimination. Just like investigators, they may interview 100 people, get 1,000 tips. Nothing is productive with that, but it could be just that one person, that one tip that opens the case wide open. And dogs are very similar to that. They are a tool, they are a resource, they are part of the investigative team. And our goal is, and my goal as a canine handler, is to get them in the right area. Also, just as importantly that I've realized over the years, is these dogs tell us a story. And when they tell us there's nothing there, then that moves the case forward. But then when they have what we call a change of behavior and an alert in an area, then we have to do our due diligence and figure out, why did the dogs alert here and not over there?
Yeah. No, yeah, it's definitely, and I'm not even sure. I mean, I haven't spoke to too many people that were on the ground there, but I just know that it was just a lot of people, and it was a lot of directed. I mean, because they had done a search earlier and it was unsuccessful, and I know this was, if it didn't happen here, I think they were just going to wrap it up, and I don't think they ever would have been found.
Wow, that's a godsend that they found them, and now, because as you said, if this was going to be, quote, the last big ditch effort of trying to find these two young people and they weren't found, you're right. What are the chances of them ever being found? So
yeah,
something to, think about on that. Yeah. And I don't know all the particulars as far as the cell phone, but I do understand from Philip, stating that there were some phone calls made by Molly and or Colt's cell phone. There was some activity there, and it all made sense. Yeah, it all made sense. Yeah.
I mean, there was one thing that some people were saying, well, maybe they died of exposure. I mean, it was the summertime, and they were making calls up until the next morning, and not in that area. They were in different places. Some people said that they were picked up by a car.
Yeah, we have 2 witness statements that say they were picked up, that Molly had said she'd gotten a ride. So to me, it's like, well, you didn't die of exposure if you got a ride out of there, right?
Yeah.
And the thing is, we have always speculated potentially that car had been moved after the chase and then moved back, because when they started searching, Paula and her family and everyone started searching, I think it was 2 weeks later, they said, oh, there's the car. And well, it took you 2 weeks to find the car. It didn't make sense. None of it made sense. Yeah, if that car had been moved, and that's not the original spot where we were standing, maybe that wasn't the original spot where the car was. That's where it was found. So there's always that. We were always speculative about that as well. Like, where exactly was that car when they got out?
Yeah. We'll talk a little bit about what you were telling us a little bit before before we get started, is that when you were out there, because the same thing happened to you when you were searching, you felt there were people watching you.
Yes. Again, we started presumably where the car was found, and a wide open area, but there was trees, tree lines, things like that. My point being is, it was not like we could have a clear view for miles. So people could be in the woods or in the trees or the forest, whatever you want to call it, and we wouldn't know that they were there. I did have what I would describe as an overwatch with me at all times with a long gun, for security and protection, because there was a lot of controversy and, from what I understand, a lot of concern about bringing a search dog into that area. And so there, I actually did have, for lack of better words, a bodyguard. Me and the dog both did. And at that point, you know, I'm like, okay, well, that's fine. I've been in that situation before. This is not going to stop us. We're going to search everywhere that we can legally and do our due diligence, and just hope that nothing happens. Nothing did, fortunately, but I was told and confirmed that there were people watching us. And that begs the question. Again, we go back to motive. As an investigator, as you know, psychology, the number one thing is that people do things for a reason. So to me, that really increased and confirmed my belief that whatever happened to these young people, for whatever reason, other people don't want them to be found. So then that asks a lot of other questions. Why? What's the motive for that? These are two young, beautiful people that should be found, hopefully alive, but if not that, at least find their remains and bring them back home. So the fact that we were being watched and watched so closely, and that people were specifically concerned about what this search dog was going to find, that raises a lot of red flags there.
Yeah, and then we weren't there.
That's the thing. We weren't there that much. I mean, if we were there a few years we were there a few years later, right? So we were there in 2018.
So 4 years.
So later. 4 years later, and again, they're watching us. They had a laser on my head. They're watching us. They're hostile. They do not want us there. They do not want Phil Klein there. They don't want Up and Vanished Payne Lindsay there. They don't want anyone digging around here. And you have to ask yourself, why? Like you said, why? Like, that's always been my question. Why? Because if you really are innocent and you don't know what happened to them, wouldn't you want to do everything that you could to help find them?
Absolutely. And that's the bottom line. Whether these are, let's say, adults, but these are children. These are young people. Mm-hmm. And I think even that urgency and just the circumstances of their disappearance, all of that, I as a community, I would say, listen, whatever I can do to help, please. We want to find these young people and then figure out where they are, what happened to them, and then were other people involved in it.
Right, because they just wanted it to go away. I mean, they really thought no one was going to look for these two.
Yeah.
I think always Molly was in the wrong place at the wrong time, and I do think that there was a bone of contention between Colt and Khan. I never thought that they should have been together in the first place unless it was for something related to drugs or something that they weren't supposed to be doing. I just don't understand how you can pretend the next day that you had nothing to do with this, or that you didn't know them, or you didn't see them, and no one questioned you. And this goes on and on and on. And there's a police report 3 weeks later by the sheriff, who's the cousin of the driver of the car. And he basically says, oh, Molly and Colt ran away. Well, if they were runaways and they ran away and that's what you believe, why would you care if there's a search dog there?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that begs the question, is there something more going on here other than Molly and Colt?
Yeah.
Or is there something so detrimental that if Molly and Colt are found or evidence is found, why wouldn't somebody want that found?
Exactly. And the fact that they were found not too far from where the car was dumped or moved to, wherever we think, and not too far from the Con Nips property line. You know, it's all intersected. I don't even think they own that property anymore. I think they may have sold it. But at the time when we were there and you were there, their property line was pretty close. Mm-hmm. You know, right from that burn pit area. I remember walking that with Phil when we were there. I would say it was probably about 500 yards from that area. So that's pretty close.
Yes, it is. And it begs the question to you, Cindy and Rob, and to your listeners, why did it take 14 years for these young people to be found? I mean, 13, 14 13 years.
Yeah.
13 years. 13 years to be found.
That's our question. Why did it take 13 years? It shouldn't have taken 13 years.
No, it should have not, especially looking at it from the perspective, again, unless you've been out there, this is not the easiest place to search.
No,
it's not the
hard
hardest,
terrain.
it's not the easiest. So I can certainly understand how an individual and even two individuals, that they're not going to be just right there. But for them to be, let's say, relatively close, they're not 50 miles away.
Right.
They're 500 yards away. So with all of these resources and, quite frankly, the high profile nature of this case, why weren't they found earlier?
Exactly. And the thing is, too, it's like, you have to think about it. Like, if that's where the car was found, right? Why weren't they able to get a warrant at that point? You had two kids that were in this car that have now vanished. So why can't you get a search permit for all those pieces of land around there? That makes no sense to me at all.
I mean, you were a law enforcement officer. If, let's just say it wasn't a big field, let's say it was a neighborhood, and the car where they dumped out was in someone's front yard in a residential neighborhood, and they left from there and disappeared from there. Would you be able to get a search warrant for that property, both inside and out?
Yes, because there is probable cause. Absolutely.
So the only difference here is just the vast amount of space. It's the same thing.
Well, I also think it's interesting that there was a fire right after this, right after the car chase, right? There was a fire, there was a burn pit. Phil believes that tree where Colt possibly fell out of was nearby there as well. So they kind of pinpointed that area. Allegedly, there was a fire started on the day of the search. Someone started a fire that day too, which is kind of interesting because it's a little random.
Yeah, very near the NIP property.
Yeah, and it's just odd. And looking at that area, it wasn't lightning, it wasn't, whatever. And it was just so odd. Out of all the places, it was in this dry creek bed with dirt piled on top of it. And it's just like, why would somebody go through this much trouble?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
As a law enforcement officer, as an investigator, as anyone, it's like, well, that's odd.
Mm-hmm.
Why would somebody go through that much trouble if they don't want something to be found? So, to be found. And now it just raises a lot of red flags, raises a lot of questions. And just this, quite frankly, this whole case doesn't make sense from the very first day. And now 13 years later, we still have so many unanswered questions.
Yeah. I mean, the one question that we do that have an answer for is we know where Molly and Colt are, and we know that now that they can be laid to rest. The medical examiner's report did indicate, I believe, there were some burn marks on some of the remains, but they believe that probably came from a brush fire that happened. There was one in 2014 in that area where you didn't search. So they believe that it could have happened there. That could have happened, but there was unfortunately they couldn't determine cause of death. But, after 13 years, so many things could have happened. Animals could have moved. The bodies weren't right next to each other. They were close, but they weren't right next to each other. So they could have been moved. If there was any holes, like there was a skull, I believe, that was found. And I believe there was a hole in the skull. You could deduce, was it a bullet hole or was it a rodent chewing, looking for, the calcium or whatever the stuff that they go for when they're gnawing on bones. So yeah, there is an answer of where they are, and now they can be laid to rest. But I don't think I'm hoping to God we're able to find out what happened to them and who did this.
Absolutely, because you're talking not one family, but two families, and then, quite frankly, a whole community.
Well, that's the thing. You have a community living under the shadow of this horrific event for 13 years, and you don't know what happened. You still don't know what happened. I think that's really awful. to be honest, and most of the people that we've spoken to have paid over the years to say anything, to, tell people what they've seen or heard, to live in fear in your own community. I mean, I think that's.
I mean, Molly and Colt were the only people that disappeared in that area.
No, and it's still happening. Someone else, we get another case recently of a woman that was close by, and people sending us all this information about all these things that unsolved cases. There's a lot of unsolved cases in that area, and it's a small space. I mean, there's a lot of land there, but there's not a lot of people.
Yeah, and for the longest time, as we all say, is there's no body, no crime. Bodies.
Hey, want a cookie? Oh, I know you just ate, so you're craving something a little sweet. Besides, one cookie isn't gonna kill you. How about half? Just a bite? Bite it. Bite it. Bite it.
Food noise isn't fair, but Mochi Health is. Your affordable GLP-1 source that puts you on a path to successful weight loss by quieting food noise.
Bite it.
Shh. Learn more at joinmochi.com. Mochi members have access to licensed physicians and nutritionists. Results may vary.
This episode is brought to you by Redfin. You're listening to a podcast, which means you're probably multitasking. Maybe even scrolling home listings on Redfin, saving homes without expecting to get them. But Redfin isn't just built for endless browsing. It's built to help you find and own a home. With agents who close twice as many deals, when you find the one, you've got a real shot at getting it. Get started at redfin.com. Own the dream.
And now, hopefully, they'll be able to charge someone with a crime, hopefully, and have at least enough information to do something. Other than that, I don't know what else you can do at this point. I mean, I'm sure that the family is full to have the remains, and I'm sure they're gonna, bury them and have a service for them, and God bless them for that, and they get to have that sort of closure. But they have a resolution, but they don't have a resolution.
Well said, and so true, and so tragic. My heart really goes out to these families, and I know the not knowing is one of the worst things that these families go through, meaning they don't know where their loved one is. But now Molly and Colt's family, they still don't know. Unfortunately, there's probably going to be so many questions that they have that may never be answered. And my heart goes out to them for that.
Yeah.
And the real problem is there's people there that do know what happened to them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we're convinced of it. We've been doing this for years now. This is like the 80th hour of podcasts we've done on this case. And, we've had people call us not wanting to reveal their names, said they knew something. I mean, whether or not those leads pan out to some, I do know that the BIA has checked out pretty much everything. And so that's the good news. The bad news is I don't think they have enough to really, go forward with the case. I'm hoping I'm wrong. And I'm hoping that someone gets charged with this and you're able to find out who eventually did this. But there's also the fact that there was so much time from the moment the crime happened till people actually started looking for them. And that falls on the sheriff, who basically pulled everybody back and said, oh, they're just runaways.
Yeah. And, in all of these situations, time is of the essence. And what happens in the beginning oftentimes dictates how the ending, turns out. And in this case, it was a very tragic ending.
Yeah. And it's not logical. I mean, you've got a kid goes in, three of them are in a car. One of them comes out alive. The other two disappear. So wouldn't your first step be, let's go to where the car was found and search everything around there to find these kids? If it was just they died of exposure or, an accident or whatever. So to tell everybody that they went to Wichita Falls immediately, not only just like the people in the town, telling the news so nobody's covering the case. I mean, Paula and her Molly's Angels, this amazing group of people that she's inspired over on Facebook. This is an amazing group of people that have supported her over the years. People were just sending letters to all the news agencies, all, Dateline, the producers, like all these people to help them get attention on this case, and they couldn't get any response from anyone for years. So and then you had the sheriff telling the local news reporter who I spoke to, oh yeah, he told me they were runaways from the beginning, so we didn't cover it. And it's like, why would you do that? Why would you do that? And
here's the thing. I mean, he knew the fact that, because if you, the 911 dispatch operator, basically they knew it was Khan. They say his name on the 911. So here you got his cousin or relative who's the sheriff in the area, knows who it is. And even if he called off the chase because he didn't want his officers or people dying, I can understand that part, because it was like apparently he was doing like 120 miles on dirt roads. So it was like it's a felony pursuit. At that point, it's a felony pursuit. So he knew where he was going. He knew where he lived. Why didn't he just go there the next day to find out what's going on? He didn't do anything. He didn't even write a report until, I think, till like 14 days later. It's like, so it's like when you have those kind of missteps on that, you give the people who are doing the crimes so much time to cover things up, and then you have all those vast fields. I mean, we've been out there. I mean, you can get lost out there very quickly.
Absolutely. And working these cold cases, it's somewhat ironic. Sometimes the passing of time is helpful because people maybe feel more comfortable talking. Maybe there are people that have passed away or moved on that they were afraid of or didn't want to talk while they were there, or whatever the situation. But the key is keeping these cases like Molly and Colt's case in the public eye, giving the attention that they deserve, not letting anyone forget, and that hopefully time will help individuals wanting to step forward and talk about it and say something that will give, some answers.
Yeah. I want to ask you this as a law enforcement person, is that, because there's always a double-edged sword where, we get told sometimes that, keeping the case in the public eye and giving information to the public is destroying the case and compromising the case. But when you have something that's 13 years old, and by the time we got it, it was like in 2018 that we looked at it.
5 years later.
It was 5 years later, and nothing had been done. Paula had done there was some investigation done by law enforcement, but by that time it was too late. There was evidence that was misplaced, searches that were compromised. But how important do you think it is for these families of these missing people, knowing that there's something nefarious going, to keep it in the public eye no matter what?
It's very important. With all respect, let's talk about the beginning of cases. We know what happened in this case in the beginning. Okay, it didn't go the way it should have. But in the beginning, certainly there is some protocols as law enforcement that we have to maintain some confidentiality to protect the integrity of the case for a lot of reasons, not only in the present, but in the near future and in the far future, if possibly this goes to trial. So understand that there may be some situations law enforcement cannot share those details. It does not mean that it's not important for these cases to be in the public eye, to give high profile to these cases. And definitely in these cold cases, one of the best ways to solve cold cases is to get them out in the public, more ears, more eyes, more input, and that eventually, hopefully, somebody will see that. Or perhaps, hey, my friend told me this when we were sitting in a bar. Or, hey, my dying grandfather or grandmother told me this, this, and this. We never know when these tips or leads are going to come in or how they're going to come in. But I would say one of the best ways to solve cold cases is to keep them in the public eye and share that information, and hopefully get that one phone call that makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I know it's like, police departments will try to, insulate all the information. Obviously, the information that they don't want to compromise a possible conviction. But if you're operating from nothing and it's been so long, I don't think it hurts anything to the point where you're putting the word out there and keeping the word out.
I agree. Yes. In these cold cases, especially you're looking at a 13-year-old case now. Absolutely. Get it out as much as possible and as often as possible and never stop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting. Well, that's good. It's good perspective from yours. Always good to hear that. And then your dogs, how are your dogs doing?
They're doing fantastic. I have actually 3 new dogs, 2 shepherds and a Mal. Chance, that actually assisted in Molly and Colt's case, unfortunately passed away of old age last year. Yeah. He was almost 15 years old. So wonderful, wonderful dog. But they just don't live long enough, guys. It's so hard. And I have to say, it never gets any easier to say goodbye to my partners. It just doesn't. So Chance was an amazing partner that I traveled all over the country with. And these 3 dogs are doing great. We've been on a number of cases with them. So we're staying busy, and certainly just want to share with your viewers, we're here to help in any way with you guys or anyone else that needs our help. Just a phone call away. We're happy to do it in any way.
Why don't you let people because I don't think people really understand that they don't have to wait for law enforcement. I mean, you're private, so you get hired by private investigators. Sometimes you get hired by law enforcement, but you can go to wherever. Like if someone is missing someone, they can contact you cold, and you can consider going out and doing a search for them.
Yes, that is correct. Now, what I will do, though, out of professional courtesy, wherever we go, I will contact the local jurisdiction that is their case to let them know that we've been contacted by the family or so-and-so to come in and search an area with the dogs. And quite frankly, I've never have had a pushback on any law enforcement agency that I do that with. They're like, okay, well, we've done what we can. Sure, we'd like to, have the help. We appreciate the help. So if someone needs my help, I'm going to give my email address. That's going to be the best way to get in touch with me is Trace, because I go by Trace. That's TRACE 314@yahoo.com. Again, Trace 314@yahoo.com. So if anybody needs my help, I'm happy to do whatever I can. There is no charge for it. I do this as a volunteer through a 501c3 that does accept donations, 100% tax write-off, but there is no charge for me to come out and help. And I literally go all over the country. Interestingly, I may be going overseas to Belgium and France and some other areas, oddly enough, to look for missing Americans from World War II. That's going to be
I have a friend right now. We have a friend who is a former FBI agent who is in Italy, on his way to Italy right now to go to where his grandfather's plane crashed in Italy during World War II. And he's working with an Italian group that does this to help recover Americans. That's interesting.
It's incredible. I didn't realize there were still missing Americans from World War II, but there are. And so in essence, as I tell folks, I have trucks. I have a truck, I have dogs, and we'll travel, so to speak. And sometimes on airplanes if we need to do that.
And she is, I'm telling you, Trace is so on point with everything. She shows up. She's a tiny little thing. She's got her dog. She's got her trucks. She's got everything mapped out. You are like super producer when it comes to this. It's amazing how prepared she is when she arrives. And then can you just tell people? I mean, we've done a lot of work with dogs. We did a National Geographic show about tracking dogs. Just kind of tell them a little bit about how it works. So, like, if someone did call you to come out to go look for someone that was missing, what would be the process for them?
So they would contact me, and then I would ask them to either give me that person's name so I can Google them, or oftentimes they have information that they can email me. I will review this. I will contact the local law enforcement agency, speak with them, let them know who I am, that this is, I'm not some crazy weirdo, whatever, that, we're here to help. And I want to emphasize that I'm here to help, not to cause drama, so to speak. And oftentimes, again, when we're involved, law enforcement embraces it, and it does help to know that I am law enforcement. So that certainly is, a plus on my side. And we set up a date and time. I do want to emphasize, we can't come out unless we've identified distinct, that makes sense, areas to search. Meaning no dog team in the world can search the entire world for someone. So there's got to be a plan, and there's also needs to be the protocols, and that's why it's important to reach out for the local law enforcement. We may have to get a search warrant. We may have to get permission to do this or that. So it's not like I can just show up with my dog and search wherever and anywhere. I still have to follow the same laws and protocols anywhere in the country. And again, identifying those areas. And I would ask, why is that area important? What's the connection there? Why is that area more important? Or I might say, well, has this area been checked based upon this, this, and this? In essence, it's a process of elimination. Again, it happens, but it's rare that we show up and we find that person immediately. So I don't want to give that false hope that, oh, wow, we finally get this resource and we're going to find our loved one and all of our questions are going to be answered. Unfortunately, it's not like the TV shows. It's not like the movies. It's still just a lot of hard, dogged work. And again, just leaning into being lucky sometimes that, wow, we finally found what we're looking for. So that process is what we do no matter where we go. And then I will write up a report, a detailed report, give it to local law enforcement. I cannot give that report to families for active investigations.
Correct.
Because of the legal parameters on that. So I provide that documentation to law enforcement, and then the family can ask the law enforcement agency, we would like a copy of the report if they want it. Of course, if we do find something, we stop right there, go through the process of maintaining the integrity of of that scene. So meaning if we find something, it's not like, well, here we go, we're going to take it to the law enforcement folks and show them this is what we found. No, we follow exactly all the protocols for law enforcement, no matter where we are. So it's very much what we do, whether we're here in Georgia or California or Oklahoma or New York. We follow those exact same legal protocols. That's very important in these cases.
Yeah. Have you ever been involved when you have discovered remains? Have you ever been in the process when you're a law enforcement or anything like that? When having to inform the families, have you ever been in those meetings with the families?
Yes, I have.
Can you talk us through that? I'm sure that's got to be super hard.
Well, I have to say to you, Rob and Cindy, and to the listeners, I do get that question out quite often by reporters. Does it bother you to find dead people? And I would say no. Because one, however that person got there, they're no longer in pain. And that's part of my armor, so to speak, to say, they're not suffering anymore. Okay. Secondly, the living is the suffering. So that's when I have to change gears. And then the family was in this particular part of this journey, and now they're in a different chapter of this journey, and to help them through it. I know they don't know this, but when I do inform them, we have found your loved ones, and I'm sorry, but they have passed. They, of course, get very emotional. They get very upset. All of those human, emotions. What they don't recognize and realize, but I do, this is a good thing. We found your loved ones. What's very difficult, quite frankly, Rob and Cindy, is when I go on these searches and I search for hours or even days, and every time I come out of those woods and find nothing, and I just see the look on the family's face, like, or they find something, they're on the edge of their seat, just hoping and hoping and hoping that today is the day. And I have to say that's even more difficult because I'm now causing them more pain. It's really, really tough that I've done everything I can humanly possibly do, and I still don't have answers for these families, and my heart just hurts for them. So telling a family that their loved one has been found, even though that's very painful for them, it's better than the not knowing, living hell that some of these families go through, just like Molly and Colt's family has been going through for 13 years. It's just unimaginable. It really is. It's pure torture for them to be living in that black hole. So I know that's a long, long answer to that question, but the bottom line is telling families that we found your loved one is a good thing. And that helps them get to a better place. And what my ultimate goal, not only in all these cases, but really in my life, is that I help these families through this journey that no family ever imagines finding themselves in, or certainly ever imagine living through, that they go through this journey, and then through the pain and through the darkness, somehow, some way, they find peace. That this is not defining their whole life. It's a very big chapter and a huge impact on their life. But I want to tell all families that have gone through this, I've seen it, there is life after this. And I would say to Molly and Colt's friends and family, there is not only life after this, but there is good living after this.
Yeah. I mean, now they don't have to live in this protracted silence of not knowing. I mean, because now they can have a funeral. You can move on. You can bury them. You can, bring them to God, and then move on from there. Because the not knowing it would be.
Forget it. I can't even imagine the not knowing. We're not related, and it tormented us that we didn't know where these two were with Molly and Colt for 8 years, working with Paula. And when they were found, I mean, we both burst into tears because we just were so overwhelmed. I can't imagine what their family members were feeling like. I just can't. I mean, it's a tragedy, and it shouldn't happen to anyone.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, sad to say, it happens every day.
There
are cases you never hear about, and that's what is just mind-boggling sometimes doing this type of work. I'm like, has nobody heard about this? And right now, I'm actually working a serial killer case here in Atlanta. And I'm like, has nobody heard about this? So
we didn't hear about it.
No.
Yeah,
we're going to talk to you about it when we're done.
Yeah. Well, actually, they're going to air the first episode or report tomorrow. So we'll talk offline about that more. But with all of that, every family goes through this. And every family deserves answers. And I'm going to do everything I can for the rest of my life to help these families through this horrible, horrible journey. And I would call it a journey because it's not short. It's not simple. Even when we find loved ones days later, weeks later, or maybe even a few months later, it's still a journey for all these families. And I'm going to do everything I can. And these dogs are going to do everything they can to help them through it.
Well, the world's thankful for people like you that do this and do it out of the kindness of your heart and because it needs to be done. And I don't, obviously it's, and we've been on searches with you, and I can tell everybody it is not easy work.
No.
It is not easy work.
Physically, emotionally, mentally demanding.
And these dogs are amazing.
Well, you bring up a great point. First of all, the dogs themselves, I really describe them as Olympic athletes because they have to be at their peak all the time. And that's by design for a lot of things that I do that I won't bog down and bore you guys with. But these dogs, there's a lot of preparation to get them at this point and with the work that they do. But I do that because it's very, very important work. And you talk about how exhausting and physically demanding and emotional it is. But guys, I have to admit, there are times where, yes, I am tired. I am sweating and I'm sunburned and just, just emotional and all that. But it's hard to describe it unless you live it. And I know you guys have lived it. For me, all of that doesn't matter because I remember I'm only dealing with this for a short time.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a discomfort. I get to go home to my normal life, and this family doesn't. And I say that is because thank you for the compliments and all of that. But I really want the attention to be on these families because they are the true heroes. They are the true people that are suffering. And that I will never be able to suffer and feel what they're going through. So yes, there are times it is very physically hard and emotionally hard and all of that, but nothing compared to what the families go through. And they inspire me to push through the discomfort and give it my all, do everything I can. And quite frankly, even more than that. And I'm happy to do it because these families deserve it. Yeah.
Well, thank you. Thank you for doing what you do. And thank you for coming on the podcast. It's been far too long since we've spoken to you. And, but yeah, we'll continue to catch up with you.
It's always great seeing and chatting with you guys and certainly working with you. And thank you for keeping this case in the forefront and letting people know that Colt and Molly matter, along with those thousands and thousands of other missing people out there as well and unsolved cases. So thank you for all your work and effort and dedication and sacrifices and quite frankly, caring. It makes a difference.
Right back at you.
Thanks, Trace.
All right.
Exactly.
We'll talk to you soon.